What's up, everyone, and welcome to Variant the Podcast. What's up, Tim?
What's going on, Arris? Hello, Variant Nation. Welcome back to the show.
Ladies, children, people of all ages.
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages.
Blue Beetle, Tim.
Yeah, man. As promised, we are here to talk spoiler open talks.
Yes.
About what? I don't even know what that means. Spoiler open talks.
Spoilers.
Is this like the
spoilers?
Like we're at the United Nations.
Yeah.
These are spoiler-free talks.
So if you weren't aware, spoilers for Blue Beetle in this podcast.
Yeah.
All
spoilers.
All the spoilers.
Galore.
How long? You know, what's up? I don't know why this is funny.
I'm getting heckled off screen, and I don't appreciate it. Just because I flub my words one time.
I know to speak.
Me no speaky.
This is random, but speaking of Blue Beetle, do you know what the runtime was? Because I was kind of thinking that.
It was just over 2 hours, I believe.
Was it? You know what? Google will tell me.
Google tells all. But yes, we're going to look. This movie, as if you didn't watch our spoiler-free review of the show and you don't want to hear spoilers for Blue Beetle.
2 hours and 7 minutes.
I was in the middle of telling the people something very important.
But they needed to know because I said this first.
Whatever. 2:07, 2 hours, 7 minutes. But if you haven't seen our spoiler-free version and you are not ready to have this movie entirely blown up for you, you can go back to the regular Variant channel and watch the spoiler-free take on the film.
This is true.
Because we are going to get into all the details in
spoilers?
this show. Open talks.
Open talks.
Yeah, open spoilery-free talks.
Is that like a synonym phrase of spoilers?
I don't know. It's something very politically sounding.
Speaking of runtime, you know things just pop in my head every now and then, right?
I didn't know that about you.
And I have to say
is that like a common thing?
Guys, let us know, because this is it's not a major pet peeve. It's a little pet peeve.
Oh. When
they give the runtime, they're like, you know, the movie is 96 minutes. The movie is 124 minutes. It's like, or you could just say 2 hours and 10 minutes or 2 hours, whatever the runtime is. It's like, why am I doing math? Why are you making me be like, okay, so an hour is 60 minutes. So if it's 120, 60 times 2, okay, it's 2 hours. Like, why I don't want to math.
This is the most 21st century first world complaint
it's kinda,
I have ever heard in my life.
It's kind of like the whole digital clocks versus like an analog clock. Like, obviously, like I still like the whole old school, like normal clock with like the hands and everything. Big hand, little hand, second hand, right? Got it. Obviously, you can tell time on it. It's fashionable. Great. Cool. But you can't tell me it's now more convenient to be like, oh, it literally just says it's 5:44 p.m. Instead of being like, okay, so it's kind of, because that's another thing. Those clocks, like normal clocks for digital, are not 100% accurate because you're kind of guessing by like a minute or two. Because when it's, you know, how it breaks it down, it's like it can technically be 12:04 or 12:03 or 12:02. It's kind of in that 5 minute range. So it's a roundabout. It's not an exact time. So if you want the exact time, where do you got to go now? A digital clock, AKA like an iPhone, an Android, or anything like that, because they're all synced. And that's where you get down to the second, the real time.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about.
This is up there. This is up there with one of the strangest sidebar rants you have ever concocted on this show, and that is quite a statement.
I'm going to say it's a little random and nonsensical, a little bit, right?
It's a lot of things.
But at the same time, it's also true. If you want the accurate, the time that NASA freaking has, you got to go digital. Just saying.
This has been a PSA.
Also,
from Variant the Podcast.
Also, because it's 2023, when we still do this stupid like daylight savings crap and have to change the clocks back.
See, that's a legitimate complaint.
No, but I'm saying, point is, when that happens, what automatically resets? And you don't remember back in the day in the 90s, it's 90s, it's like, oh, we got to remember to reset the clocks. We got to da. Now, yeah, now.
What was it?
Now, it's
my man has his own language. I'm convinced.
Dude.
I'm convinced.
Now, for the most part, because a lot of people, like, I still have a digital clock that I have to change manually in my bedroom. But for the most part, like, your watch, your phone, your tablet, all that stuff, you don't got to worry about it because it's the cloud, okay? It's the freaking cloud that changes it, all right? It just does it for you. I'm not saying that's the best because in the long run, we all know they're going to take over. But As far
Who's going to take over?
The machines, Tim! Where have you been, my dude? like
How did we get to Skynet?
Dude, speaking
what is happening?
Speaking of, guys, we have an episode.
This has gone off the rails.
This is the last
has gone
rant.
off the rails.
This is the last rant I'll go, and then I swear we'll talk about Blue Beetle. It's the last little tangent I'll go on here. Speaking of Skynet.
Nobody was talking about Skynet.
You just brought it up.
You brought it up. I was referencing the thing you were talking about.
The machines could be anything, not necessarily. You've seen iRobot? Machines.
We're trying to talk about Blue Beetle. I don't know what happened. I don't even know where we're at.
Okay, listen.
Listen, we need GPS to find our way back to where we started.
Listen. Speaking of Skynet, mister, I'm bringing up Terminator.
Fine, go ahead.
We just shot an episode that's going to come out like a few weeks or whatnot. We mentioned the RoboCop Terminator freaking crossover, right? Yeah. Okay, so to bring this back to comics, I just want to say briefly, one, watch out for that episode. It's going to be a cool episode. Two, tell me.
It's true. That's true. It's a good episode.
Tell me, I'll give a little preview here. There's a Terminator RoboCop crossover by Frank Miller. And in that, one of the most genius things happen, right?
Right.
Where we find out that freaking RoboCop is linked to Skynet, and he's really the machine and robot that sets it all off.
Yes.
Okay. Very random. I know we got here somehow. We're here.
There was a lot of left turns.
Point is, when we were talking about that, how cool is that freaking that idea to link RoboCop and Terminator?
That was a very cool idea.
Seamlessly, obviously Frank Miller.
Yes. Yeah. It's one of the cooler ideas in crossover, as far as crossovers in comics go. It was one of the cooler ideas.
Point is, digital clocks. Better, more accurate. I mean, Rolex. You can't. It's a Rolex. It's awesome. It's fashionable. But you want the real time. Where are you going, Tim? Where are you going?
The sun.
Sundial.
The sun.
I mean,
the moral of the story is Blue Beetle is a great movie.
You know, it's
a fun movie. Great might be the wrong word, but certainly a lot of fun.
But Blue Beetle was pretty great.
See, there was no, you see what I did? There's no way for us to get back to Blue Beetle in an organic way. So I just kind of had to jump off the cliff.
I actually forgot how we got. How did I go on this?
I couldn't even tell you if I tried.
It was something with the clocks, right?
I don't know, but I really don't want to make a U-turn right now and get back there.
All right.
So,
all right, whatever. It was a ride. It was a ride.
Yeah. Something about time. And then we got into space, then crossovers, and now we're back to Blue Beetle. So
this is your fault. You brought up Skynet.
No.
Yes.
No.
You were like, Skynet.
I refuse to accept any responsibility for what just transpired. I will not allow it.
Okay. Oh, that's how it got. Because I looked up the runtime for Blue Beetle, and I was like, this is a little pet peeve of mine. That went on to time.
It feels like eternity ago.
Yeah. That went on.
I don't even know. Like it feels so long ago. But yes, you are correct. That is how this happened.
But again, I've said this like 4 times. This is a different point. I've said like point is like 4 different times for 4 different things. Like point is, and they're all different points.
My point was, if you don't want spoilers, watch the spoiler-free version of our thoughts.
Original thought. Okay.
The movie is 2 hours and 7 minutes.
And just say if the movie's 90 minutes, just say it's an hour and a half.
Fair enough.
Just say it, okay?
Fine.
There we go.
Fair enough. I thought originally you were going to point out, I hate it when they say a movie is, let's say 2 hours and 7 minutes, but the movie itself is actually like an hour and 40 minutes or 50 minutes, and it's like 15, 20 minutes of credits at the end.
That's actually a good point.
That is my pet peeve.
Do all movies count credits as part of the runtime?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because I know they do it for TV shows. Like I say to you all the time, I'm like, hey, the new Ahsoka episode is 44 minutes, but that really means it's like 35 minutes because they do like freaking 7-8 minutes of like
they give you the
credits.
full rundown trailers or credits included.
Okay, so that means that Blue Beetle is probably like 2 hours exactly of actual like content.
Yeah, well, the end. There's two end credits.
Yeah, there is.
So spoilers begin now for those of you who are worried about that.
Was this like a 10-minute rant?
I don't know.
It is. I'm getting the nod off screen. That was a 10-minute rant.
We just wandered into a space-time wormhole of some sort, but we've made our way back.
All right.
Oh well, the shirt I'm wearing is fitting. I'm wearing a Back to the Future. Dude, was that some kind of like a weird?
Okay.
This is
Blue Beetle related. This 100% is. Again, It's the last time I'm going to say it, because if you don't know spoilers by now, then I don't know what to tell you, okay? George Lopez's character, Rudy,
yes,
when he goes off on his little rant about how
the government
and they freaking like flashy thing, you can erase your memories. I started, I'm like,
I was hitting you.
I'm like, that's my freaking theory, my joke theory that I always talk about, like the whole Men in Black style.
That's what we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks.
Oh, the neuralizer.
Neuralizer. I hit you and I said, this is going to be you in 20 years.
He was one of the best characters, so I'm down.
So funny.
He was one of the funniest, the most likable characters in the film, so that's a compliment.
It really is. It really is. George Lopez. So okay. So first of all, as far as the movies go, like the casting was great. We said this in our spoiler-free review. The casting was so good. George Lopez, this is, I think, the most perfect role for him that I think I've ever seen him play. And he's fun. I like George Lopez. He's really funny.
I'm a fan of his stand-up. I'm a fan I watched his sitcom, the
George Lopez show.
I'm just a fan of him in general. I think he's one of my favorite comics. But I didn't, like, when I saw him cast, I'm like, okay, I like George Lopez. And then I saw like he had the mullet kind of going on.
I was like, where are they going with that?
Yeah, like he's like that edgy, like quirky uncle. And I was like, okay. And then when you see it, you're like, oh, this works. Like, it works so
well. Shockingly well. And he pulled that off so like the stuff that he included, like the jokes. And so when we're referencing Taco, it's his Tacoma. Yeah, he has a Toyota Tacoma that he's got like all souped up, and he has it off grid because he's worried about the government spying on him.
That's his intro.
Yeah.
Like he comes to pick up Jaime. He comes to pick up Jaime at the airport, and that's how he's like, stop, put the cameras away. They're watching, they're listening.
So he calls his Tacoma the Taco. And so there's a part where Jaime he's right when after the scarab embeds itself into his body, and he's got to go figure out.
I forgot about that. It's a demon.
That whole scene where the scarab chooses Jaime is so funny because of the family. The family's reaction to him getting it and them screaming like he's possessed. It's really funny, like, especially if you grew up in any kind of a family that had any kind of like religious background of any kind, Catholic, Christian, whatever. Like, it's really, it's relatable. So, but it was just,
wait. He goes, it's in me. How'd it get in there? He went up his ass.
Yeah. He's like, what? No. There was just so many parts, so many beats about it that were funny. But he takes his truck and he says, like, there's like the dad and the sister know he's taking his truck. And they're looking at the window like, oh no, don't tell Rudy doesn't know. And he looks and he goes and he runs out and he looks out the window and he sees taking it. And he screams in a way that is just, I was crying laughing.
No, it was probably...
Like, and then he just passes out. It was so funny.
That was probably the funniest.
That might have been the funniest moment in the
whole little
movie.
Scene there.
Yes. Well, from him becoming Blue Beetle, the scarab choosing him and it getting in bed, all the way through him taking his truck and him coming back with the truck.
The funny thing about
the funniest window of the film.
You see, like they show that in the first a few of the trailers, like him, like getting ripped up by the scarab and turning into Blue Beetle for the first time.
You see a bunch of that actually,
but like they held back a lot actually,
like the full context and a lot of the humor of it.
Yes, yeah. So I thought that was brilliant because I hate when trailers just like show you everything.
Yeah,
because then when you watch like even the bit at the end in the final boss battle where like the scarab's like, I can create anything you can imagine. He's like, oh yeah, and he creates like the Buster Sword. Yeah. Like awesome still, but we saw that in the trailer.
They added a lot more.
Yeah. So, but I like when they just like that, the context not being there made it so much better when you actually saw it for the first time.
The only thing that I could think of that they put in the final trailer for the film that I wish they hadn't was any hint or inclination of the grandmother being a former revolutionary.
Was that in the trailer?
That was at the end of the final trailer.
I didn't see that.
Yes.
So that was all brand new for me.
Yes. I didn't see that. You lucked out because I saw that bit. Now, I didn't know any context. I don't give you any context in the trailer. But they see her with that giant Gatling gun.
Yeah.
That futuristic Gatling gun.
That's kind of lame because that was a big twist.
Oh, it was such a funny element.
Because she was quiet, the stereotypical like abuela, like the whole film, stuff like that with the Vicks vapor up and that whole thing. And then at the end, they reveal she's like former like special forces, like take down the imperialists.
To the imperialists. Oh man, yeah, there was a lot of elements in this movie that were just they caught you off guard, but they were also they landed so well because the setup was good.
Yes,
like for instance, the mom and the grandmother, particularly the grandmother, being former revolutionaries in their country.
Yeah,
it hit so well because they were so sweet and they were so endearing for the first hour of the film.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So when the second half of the film rolls in, it's like it really is funny because usually they do stuff like that sometimes and it just doesn't play well.
Doesn't work. Yeah,
it comes off as cheesy or whatever. But it played really well. It just was fun.
Yeah, I think you said it best with the grandma specifically. You were like she's like a cartoon character, which it worked very because that's the thing with this movie. There is like cheese in there, but it's kind of like what Cobra Kai does so well, not that extreme, but in the sense where like it knows what it is. So 100%, it just works because it knows it's supposed to be fun. It knows it's supposed to be a little goofy and it doesn't take itself too seriously. So it plays well.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this movie as a whole really did very, very well. The big reason of probably why I and you, and I'm sure many others will enjoy it so much is just because it knows what it is. It doesn't try to be like the super serious or even really reinvent the wheel. I said it in our spoiler podcast. I think another reason why I liked it so much is because it kind of went back to basics where it was just like the story again is your more or less basic like superhero origin where this alien device, or thing gives this person superpowers. There's some kind of tragedy that sets him on his course to like give him that drive to be a superhero and stuff like that and all this stuff. And it just worked. And the whole like boy girl thing where there's this love interest and by the end he gets the girl and all like just very basic, but it was refreshing because we haven't seen that lately because we've been getting so many superhero movies over the last decade or so that they've been having to try to reinvent it so that we have to do this and do this different and make it darker or change this character and like just reinvent the wheel that it's like, yeah, but let's not forget like what the basis and premise, like the baseline for all this is. Let's go back to that. And since it's been a while since we got something like that, at least done this way and properly, I think it hit that much harder for me.
I think that this took the producers and the director of Blue Beetle. It felt a little bit like they took some solid lessons from the first Shazam movie and then put their own spin on it. And then added and sprinkled over it some beautiful 90s kid fairy dust.
That's probably a big reason too, because, we've talked about that on the spoiler-free thing as well, where this movie very much had 80s, 90s vibes all going on. Where
I would say late 80s, early 90s. For
you pointed out that it was kind of very much like Karate Kid-esque, that
like
kind of vibe.
Modern take.
And then I was like, even a lot of cinematography and music was very much like that 80s Stranger Things
very much
vibes with the neon pinks and purples and blues, and then the music. That's another thing. I said it to you several times while watching it. Blue Beetle's theme. Freaking good.
I would say the whole score.
Yeah.
The whole score, even the song selection.
It was one of those scores where like Wonder Woman's theme or like Superman where it's instantly like, you hear it, Blue Beetle. Now it's just, it was one of those things that just hit instantly where like, that's Blue Beetle. Where you hear, every time you hear the, you're like Wonder Woman. Yeah. It was like that, just so distinct and so well done.
I don't think it was as like hard hitting as, let's say, a Wonder Woman theme. Like Wonder Woman's theme is like, it's intense.
Her theme is really good.
Like it hits. Like this is good. I wouldn't say it hits on that level. I more thought that the music just throughout the film was just so perfectly placed.
You didn't enjoy the theme as much as I did?
No, I did. Oh, okay. I liked it. I'm just saying I don't think it's quite on par with, let's say, a Wonder Woman or even a Superman. I'm talking about the Hans Zimmer Superman.
Yeah, the first flight.
John Williams, that's like, get out of here. Like, you're not hitting that.
Although we did a poll a while ago, it'd be interesting to do it again because it was a long time ago, on putting the Zimmer Superman score up against John Williams. I think like it was very 50-50. Or did Zimmer beat it out by like a little bit,
I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look, but I think it was pretty close or Zimmer's beat it out.
Which is crazy. That's crazy.
But
I mean, they're both really good, but
and I get it. It's kind of a bias because it's the more modern take. It's what most of us are more used to. I mean, I kind of lean
Well, Man of Steel's old now too. So,
but if you hear Superman, the Superman theme song, anywhere in the world,
John Williams, yeah,
everyone knows what it is. Everyone.
Same thing with like Danny Elfman, Batman,
or the Star Wars score, or any of these. There's just certain scores. Harry Potter's theme.
Harry Potter's great.
Anywhere in the world you start playing that, people know.
John Williams score. John Williams and Danny Elfman.
You see the theme. You see the theme that's going
Jurassic Park, John Williams.
Yeah. And you can pretty much play it almost anywhere, and everyone knows generally what the franchise is.
Yeah.
So, and Hans Zimmer is like in that next batch.
Yeah.
Of
what was Back to the Future? Was that Silvestri?
Alan Silvestri, yeah.
Which was the Avengers theme.
Yes.
See?
Correct. He's done a couple of his own that are like
there's like
iconic.
really like 5 composers that like have done the majority of the iconic themes.
It's really like John Williams.
He's got the bulk for sure.
Spacebar. Then Hans Zimmer is kind of on an island by himself.
Danny
at this
Elfman's
point.
up there too.
Yeah, but Hans Zimmer has really created a portfolio
Batman,
that's insane.
And he's Jack, okay? Jack the Pumpkin King.
The vocals, yeah. No, Danny Elfman is incredible. And but Danny Elfman I would put on the shelf with like an Alan Silvestri or a Horn or guys like that.
Yeah. There's no question Williams is like
Thomas.
Thomas. He's the Spielberg of like composing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's insane what he's doing.
But anyway, the Blue Beetle theme, we both enjoyed it.
Loved it. The music was so good. I would say just the overall vibe of Blue Beetle, that early 90s. Again, if you're a 90s kid or even an 80s kid, if you grew up and like for me, like the late 80s, early 90s, that was my formative years.
Mm-hmm.
So anything like that, it just makes you smile because it brings back those memories, that nostalgia kicks in. And what this movie does well that not a lot of things, because there's so many different properties that are trying to use and have been since Stranger Things, really. The first season of Stranger Things, people just trying to emulate that 80s and 90s vibe. And not everybody does it well. And it started waxing old at some point. This does a really good job of being tongue in cheek, knowing what it is, adding a modern edge to it while still giving you that backdrop, that early 90s backdrop. And it does it in such a fun way, and it connects really well with a lot of the themes and through lines that made those, really popular late 80s or 80s, 90s films that we all love, like a Karate Kid or a Back to the Future, made them work.
It's kind of why like Cobra Kai hit too.
Yes, exactly.
They did that well. And again, they were very aware that like
very
the original Karate Kid was cheesy and stuff. So bringing it, they had to be very tongue in cheek with it, where it's like, we know it's a little goofy, but it's still cool because we know, we're handling it appropriately. Yeah.
The self-awareness allows you to just have fun.
Which I'm very excited for. I think it's the final season for Cobra Kai.
I don't know.
And I know they're doing spinoffs.
I haven't seen it since I think season 4.
You binged I remember you got really into it and you binged like the first few seasons.
Yeah. I watched like the first 2 seasons or 2 or 3 in a row. And then I fell off, and then the next season came out. And I think I watched it eventually, but I think I'm missing a season or so.
You know what else that I liked about this movie? This movie is yet another example, because I know a lot of people are like, if they change anything from the comic books, you don't like it. I'm just like, not true. I say all the time, if, obviously try to stick to the source material as much as you can, because the only reason why you're making this movie is because of the source material. But if you make changes, now it's really a weird thing, because obviously people make changes. They're not, I would hope, they're not trying to make them for the worse. They're trying to improve on it. But a lot of times it doesn't hit. This one, they changed several things, like how he got the scarab and stuff like that. The villain Karapaks was like totally different.
Right.
And they even Ted Kord's daughter and all that stuff.
They introduced a daughter for Ted Kord, Jenny
Korg and all that. So the way they did everything and the way they modified and changed things, I thought worked perfectly. It was one of those things where I'm like, like this fits within it. It's not, things aren't like too crazy or out there. It still kept like Blue Beetle as a central focus and character, because it is a Blue Beetle movie, with also honoring the Blue Beetle lineage, which was crazy. Like, they didn't just like, this is the first Blue Beetle. They completely acknowledged, like the books, that like Ted Kord was before him, and before Ted Kord was Dan Garrett. So I thought that was great. You even see their costumes in like the Beetle cave of sorts, like a lot actually. When Jenny, Ted Kord's daughter, brings Jaime and Rudy into the cave, it's like a central focus on the mannequins. And then again, this is spoilers. So at the end, you even find out that Ted Kord is not dead. I mean, they never said he's dead. They said he's missing. But at the end, you hear what we're all assuming
nobody was shocked by it
is Ted Kord's voice. So he's around somewhere, which again would be just like the comic books, because we all know that Ted Kord mentors Jaime Blue Beetle. And that would be great for a sequel, or any, as they connect this into the DCU with James Gunn for, a second film. And then they could eventually bring in Booster Gold, which would be really, really cool. Like, now that's another thing too. Like, that was Ted Kord at the end. Like, that was his voice, right? That's what you picked
Definitively,
up.
He says his name.
He does say his name?
He says
okay, because for a second I'm like, is this like Booster Gold from the future or something like that? Okay, it is Ted Kord. Okay.
And he says, get word to my daughter.
Get word to my, that's right. So it is Ted Kord. Yeah, so, but it opens up,
Ted.
It opens up everything, because the other thing, which we know from the books that they kept in the movie, Ted Kord's daughter even said it, that Ted Kord was much like Batman. He didn't have powers.
Right.
The Scarab didn't bond with him like Jaime.
Yep.
It did with Garrett, the first Blue Beetle.
Yep.
It didn't with Kord, but now it is with Jaime. So he's going to just be mentoring him and kind of being like his splinter or something, so to speak, which I thought was really cool, because that's just like the books as well.
That's exactly what I was about to say. That was one of the things I was like, this is how you do it. Because to just echo what you already said.
They honored the legacy with still changing little things here and there.
To echo what you've already said, they demonstrated that you can stay largely true to the source material, take a few liberties, just to keep it interesting, but without making it to where those changes really alter the heart and soul of the main characters and their backstories.
Yeah.
Right? You allow those things to come through, because that's what fans are looking for. And that's one of the things that frustrates me. And this is kind of like the issue with a lot of these movies coming out of Hollywood, because they're looking to make, these creators, they're looking to make their thing.
Yes.
They're looking to make their version of this thing, that they're not really so concerned with giving us the source material and the original. And they don't fully grasp what the audience wants, because to them it's weird. To a lot of these creators, it doesn't make sense to them that we would want to see the same thing, the same stories that we've already read and seen on pages translate directly onto live stream. They're like, well, there's nothing interesting about that. And so it's foreign to them, because they're all about originality and creation and all of that. And I understand that. But what fans are looking for, they're looking to see the live action interpretations of these classic and iconic characters and stories on the big screen in live action. They want a translation of that, not a reinterpretation.
Yeah.
And you can, again, add those liberties. And this movie, I thought, just did that super, super, super well. And the director, I think his name is Soto, Angel
fellow
Soto.
Puerto Rican.
Yeah, he's Puerto Rican, they tell you what stories that's one of the cool things I think that DC is doing now, is they're telling you these are the books
so cool.
That we referenced for this.
When it opens up with him coming back from graduating from college,
it was like
graduation day.
Yeah.
And that was one of the recommendations.
That was one of them. It was Graduation Day, Infinite Crisis, and the Blue Beetle series, standalone series.
Which, by the way,
by Griffin.
We covered the entire Blue Beetle Graduation Day series on the Variant channel, the main channel. So go check that out if you want to learn about the comic book that helped inspire the film.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we not only did we cover the Graduation Day, the whole story, we also did a history of Blue Beetle that covers a lot, not just Jaime, but it gets a little bit into Ted Kord and Dan Garrett.
Yep, just Blue Beetle legacy.
The whole legacy. And then we also we did another episode that gives you guys our top 10 recommendations if you're looking to get into Blue Beetle and read him as a character. So,
and an origin of Karapaks.
Oh yeah, we did the origin of Karapaks. We actually released that. That was last Friday.
Which again, his origin, said it earlier, but they changed it like a lot, actually, completely. Yeah. But it's still, because see, that's how you do it, because like you can't really, you could do whatever you want, obviously, but you can't change a big character like a Joker or a Freeze or a Reverse Flash, someone that's like basically A-list villain that we all know. But be honest, only the comic book fans really know much about Karapaks. Like he's not an A-list, B-list character at all. So with those kind of characters, it enables you to take more liberties, because even as comic book fans are like, yeah, they only really appeared like a handful of times in the book. So it's not like I need to see them this way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the other thing too, I thought worked really well is within the context of the story that they were telling for Jaime Reyes and his family, the changes that they made to Conrad Karapaks. I don't think, his first name, they actually changed his first name. His first name isn't Conrad.
It isn't. I forget what it is. Yeah.
She says it a few times.
Because, he's Hispanic in the film.
Yeah, so they change him to Hispanic. And then by the end, you learn his real story.
Yeah.
Because they integrate Kajida into Karapaks. And in doing so, that crossover allows Kajida to see his memories and his past. And it also restores it for him because he had lost a lot of that because he had an accident.
Stepped on a landmine.
Yeah. So he remembers all of this where he was taken as a child by gorillas and used basically to fight
like real gorillas. There's some people are like, wait a minute. You're telling me a pack of silverbacks?
Yeah. Pack of silverbacks. It's like, no, this is not Tarzan. But like, revolutionaries and warlords and so forth in his country. And he was used as a child. He was forced to kill people as a child, and he became this violent man of war. And was kind of forced into, his mother was killed by war and all of this kind of thing. Cord Industries, very similar to what we saw with the Stark Industries.
Very similar.
At the beginning in the first
and stuff
Iron
like
Man
that
movie.
even hit home a lot because that stuff happens in real world.
Happens in real life.
So it's like they did a lot of things where like that we were like, okay, like that's actually going on, has gone on in the world, is going on in the world.
Goes on currently, yeah.
And then even a lot of like the struggles, like the main thing, the struggle with Jaime where his father and stuff like that forces him to go down that path. That was great. That was a very heartfelt moment when his sister, was there with his father, and she's just like, she literally says, "Mommy." That's what got it for me.
Oh,
she didn't say mom. She's a grown freaking woman, and she's like, "Mommy," because in that moment you revert back and come to your most vulnerable state because you're about to lose the person that means one of the people that means most to you in life. So I was like, that was really real because I feel like that's what happened to any adult in something that tragic of a situation where there's literally like, SWAT and all these people like coming around you, like looking to take your family and stuff like that. So that hit hard. And then even just the way they established the relationship with Jaime and his parents and like struggling and they might lose everything. And he went to college. He's the only college graduate. So he's like, I got a degree. Like I got a really good degree actually. I think he got a lawyer degree. They mentioned he's like, pre-law. I could make like us really good money. And then that doesn't work out like in real life. Just because you graduate doesn't mean you're going to be making six figures right out the job. Yeah. So like it just on all those levels, it hit. And then even one of my favorite things, I wasn't able to say it in obviously the spoiler free version we did. But one of my favorite things is when he first starts using the Scarab in the Blue Beetle suit, the Scarab just wants to like kill any threat.
Right.
And he's very vocal to like, no, not kill, just like incapacitate, like bring down without killing.
He fights with it.
He fights with it.
No killing.
Right. It's always wanted to do like these cannons, guns, knives to like kill people. And he's very, very much like, no. And that happens like a few times.
Which is also directly pulled from the comics.
Yes, because the whole thing is the Scarab, like the Reach, stuff like that. It's here to like, annihilate and stuff like that, and he forces it to do good. Yeah,
which they haven't gotten into yet.
No.
They haven't touched on the Reach or the origins of the Scarab and all that yet, which is why one of the reasons why we're like, we want to see this continue.
Black Beetle and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But by the end, Jaime loses it because he thinks that Karapaks killed his uncle, Rudy. So he just loses it. Yeah, he snaps and he, that's where he goes like beast mode, if you will. And he basically gets to the point where he's literally standing over Karapaks, defeated him. Even the Scarab's like, he's incapacitated. He's done. Threat like neutralized.
Yeah, and an important part of this is that at this point he has already lost his father to this whole thing.
Yes.
Which was the beginning of, and he has an interaction with his father.
And and again, he had several fights before this where he's very vocal, like, no, we don't kill. I don't want to kill anyone. That's not a thing. This point, he's like, no. You're dying today.
Yeah.
But it's the Scarab having now finally integrated with Jaime, because that's another plot point where it's slowly becoming completely symbiotic with him and his brain and his body, was like, no, I can't let you do that.
Right.
And now it's the flip, which was really cool, where the alien tech Scarab's like, no, that's not who you are. Because now they're one.
But she says that's not who we are.
We are. Yeah, exactly. That actually, it hits even harder.
Cool,
it's even harder. And she stops him and he doesn't do it. He realizes what he's going to do. I thought that was a really cool where they built it up to where like, no. Only for at the very end, the climax of the movie, the final boss battle, the alien, the Scarab's like, no, we're not doing this.
Yep.
Like, we're better than that. You're better than that. Yep. And I was like, that's how you freaking do a movie.
Yeah.
It's those little things, the way, just like the setup and the payoff, which is why I said before, that I thought this is one of the best third acts in a superhero movie in a long time, because often with a lot of stuff we've gotten recently, even like the Secret Invasion series, like I liked it initially. Like I remember, I wasn't amazing, but like that finale, they did not stick the landing.
I would say the whole second half of the season was just a train wreck.
Specifically finale, everyone agrees that like it was horrible. And then movies like that, movies in general, you know, whether it's Love and Thunder or whatever thing comes out, it just doesn't stick. And this, I'm like, wow, this is, they stuck it. Like it's very hard. I would say movies in general, because you could have a good first, second act. You're like, yeah. But then for whatever reason, you're like, I didn't like the way it ended though. This, I'm like, no, yeah. Again, I'm not saying it's perfect, but very well done.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and we didn't get into it in the spoiler-free portion of this because, again, it gives away too much of the real, the meat of the story. Is that was, I think, my favorite part about this movie, and you've already kind of hinted about a lot of it, is this through line of where we draw our strength really in life.
That was a big part,
right? Yeah. Because the universality of this story, where I know this was really centered around this Mexican family, was really driven by this Hispanic family theme, right? And it was really directed towards like a representation of like Hispanic families
for sure
in America and so on. But there was so many universal elements to that everybody can relate to. I think I would say the vast majority of people, put it that way, especially if you grew up not wealthy on any front.
Which I would say is most.
It is legitimately. It's most of us.
What is the wealthy, like the 5% of the world or something like that?
It's the much smaller percentage. But my point is that not only did it focus on where we really get our strength from, which is our family, our loved ones, sticking together, because times get hard. Hard things come, tough things come. And it happens more often than not, honestly, in life. You face more challenges than you do triumphs in life. And it's having each other and having those close ties with the people that you can link arms with and walk through those things together. That's where you draw your strength from. And it does this movie does a great job. And again, this is not like, like some
Winter Soldier.
It's not an Oscar, worthy film, like in that sense of a drama. But it embeds in this really fun action comedy this kind of underlying message of there are going to be things that suck. We all face them on some level or another, right? And it's when you have each other, you can make it through anything if you have the right mindset and you surround yourself with people and you give the people that you love, the people that are placed in your life to be those relationships. You give them the right priority and you place them in the right place, and then you have the right mindset. You can work through anything. And I love that. The father, how hopeful the father was. It was like, we've been here before.
I kept saying that
we can do this.
I was like, he's such a sweet man.
Yeah. You kept saying that throughout the film. Sweet man. Sweet man.
He had gentle eyes.
Yeah, he really did.
He was like that loving, it's like that dad you'd want to like, yeah, he's going to be okay,
and
son.
He's played by a really famous Hispanic actor, Damien Alcazar. He's like, and he was perfect for the role. Just very very loving, very empathetic, great father figure in the film. And the other thing that I love, and it's in the same vein, of everything else I'm talking about, is I love that they added this element of addressing like purpose and meaning, right?
Yes.
Like, this is not like what your purpose is so much bigger than what the world around us tends to make you think it is.
Yeah.
It is not this shallow, superficial stuff of like college degrees or how much money you have in the bank. Purpose and meaning comes from things like what you do for others, sacrifices that you make to make someone else's life a little bit better.
That was one of, even, talking about it in detail here, like we're doing really for the first time, is making me like it even that much more, really dissecting it. But like the fact that the whole, because initially like halfway through in the film, like first beginning of second act, Jaime has a conversation with his dad about purpose, right? And like he basically asked that, like, well, what's your purpose? He's like, I haven't found it yet. Like, so they set that up. The setup was great. They set that up only for when his dad passed and before the big boss battle where, Jaime like fully merges with the Scarab, him to see like his dad like on the other side, if you will. And his dad tells him, he's like, I found my purpose. It's for this. It's to tell you to do this and go like be a hero basically.
Yeah,
like
this is in the afterlife.
This is the afterlife, right? Like my purpose is to be like the crutch, basically, like the crux or whatever, to set you to be the hero to save it, which is so, I mean, really think about that. Like the dad's whole purpose was to like have his son and then die so his son could save hundreds, if not thousands of people. That is so cool.
And that moment where he tells his son, I finally understand my purpose.
Right.
It was to be here with you right now so that you could understand your purpose.
Right. So well done.
And what a great message.
Yeah. So well done.
About purpose, about true purpose and true meaning and how it can be found in the thing you least expect.
It. Yeah.
Right. That is so profound, but it was done in this like
the grandma,
very simple way. The grandmother after he dies.
She goes, this is not the time to cry.
Right.
That's later.
There will be a time to cry.
We fight. After we and I was like, yeah, because then they played that off later too. After they win and they're safe in the ship, they all hug. She goes, now's the time to cry. And I'm like, oh my god, they keep bringing everything full circle.
And all of the setups, all the different setups made that moment truly like impactful.
You see, it's this,
and this is why the movie stuck up on me a little bit because these little things you don't think. You know, and again, this isn't like Roger Deakins level cinematography. It's not Ridley Scott directing.
Yeah.
It's not like that. It's still a DC film in terms of its look and its appeal. It's still just a funny, fun action film, but it's got all these underlying embedded messages and through lines that are really impactful because of the way they set them up and pay them off.
Well, the script was very well done.
It really was, especially for just, a 2-hour origin story.
For sure. Then that's the thing too. Like, I think it was also refreshing in the sense that I think what really benefited this and DC is this was Blue Beetle's first outing. Like one of the things that was really cool about this is the fact that yes, like we find out in this movie that heroes like Flash, Batman and stuff still exist because Ruby mentions them, but they did it in a way where it's not necessarily like Ezra Flash or like Affleck Batman.
There's no tie-ins.
Right, and they didn't show anything either. It's literally just saying names of heroes so it could seamlessly go into the DCU, which
without
said
question.
They're going to.
We even see, because we know he's in pre-law, he studies pre-law, we see him wearing a sweater that says Gotham Law.
I know.
We see a LexCorp as a building.
LexCorp.
Right? There was another one
what about the OMAC freaking? That's a huge thing
OMAC,
here. OMAC, which is also hinting to
we didn't bring that up already.
OMAC, which is hinting to Brother Eye eventually and all that stuff from Infinite Crisis, which is where Blue Beetle first appeared. Infinite Crisis issue 5 and Jaime first appeared in Infinite Crisis issue 3. But it's just, so all that is even like callbacks to like Blue Beetle from the comics, or little things. It's like, remember this was a big bad in Jaime's first kind of run here. Yeah. So they did a lot of fan service, a lot of cool Easter eggs as well. And I was hoping they were gonna be like do something to directly connect with the DCU, but I kind of liked as well that they just left it. Like the tease of Ted Kord being alive was way better because if there's one thing we've learned, no matter what Saffron or Gunn say, they still seem like they're figuring things out. So it's like, just don't say, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. So just keep everything shut until you know for sure where you're going.
This movie, it made me more, and I don't know if this is warranted or not, it did make me more hopeful for where things might go in the DCU.
But the crazy thing is, this wasn't done.
I know, that's why I say it's probably not warranted. And I don't know if this is going to lead us into anything that's similar. I can just say for this particular film, if this tone is maintained and then they build off of it, and then I'm not saying that every movie has to have this tone.
Yeah.
It shouldn't.
No, it worked for this. Yeah.
It's this character this works for. I'm more talking about this. The movie had a greater sense of thoughtfulness to the story and the approach to the character than what we have been seeing, right? And that's more what I'm referring to. If they take this level of thoughtfulness and care as they approach everything from Superman Legacy all the way through all the other properties that have already been announced, like Batman Brave and the Bold, things like this. If they take this same level of, I hope, of thoughtfulness to an approach to the characters and the stories, we'll have a lot to look forward to, I think.
What do you think about the fact that Andy Muschietti, director of The Flash, is apparently directing Batman Brave and the Bold?
I don't know how I feel about that. Because
again, I will still stick to it. I do not think Flash is a bad movie.
It's not a bad movie. I would just say that it's far from a perfect movie. Now, the questionable thing,
because he was still having to, because I feel like it's almost unfair.
That's what I was about to say.
He was still having to deal with all the DC Snyder stuff. Yeah. Raven the Bold will allow him a fresh start. It will be his Batman, his Robin, his Gotham. He doesn't have to do anything or connect it to anything in the past.
That's why I don't think you can judge him off of the Flash.
Yeah.
He was dealing with so many things that were outside of his control.
Yeah.
That
he had to stay within parameters.
There was no parameters. That's the problem. The parameters were constantly shifting under his feet the entire time they were writing, pre-production and production and then post-production. I mean, they had to do all kinds of reshoots because of what was going on.
Parameters in the sense because of they didn't know where they were going. They were having to be like, don't do this, you have to do that, you have to stay in here. You can't say that necessarily because we don't know where that's going. So he was kind of like forced to work around certain things.
Without question. And that was just changing all throughout his time working on the film. It was just this ever shifting, the sands were constantly shifting under his feet. So he's a capable director, clearly. The only thing I would say is the thing that gives me more pause and more concern is the way that he handled some of the complaints about the film or the concerns from fans about the film.
Oh, did he say certain stuff?
Yeah, he didn't take the best approach to it. He was he was kind of agitated. He was a little bit short about, or a little bit temperamental might be the word.
Well, because
about some of it. And I get it. You spent a long time working on a piece of project.
Is literally the biggest superhero blockbuster flop of all time. Bigger than Green Lantern.
Yeah. The pressure that he must have been feeling, but also the frustration of this is a project he's been working on for years.
Yeah.
Right? Years. And so many things happened that were out of his control. He probably had so many intentions for this film that he was not able to fully realize right in the end. Mm-hmm. And that I have a sympathy to it for sure, because that had to be insanely painful for him.
For sure.
And so that was probably some of what was coming out as he wanted it to be as successful as possible so that maybe he could participate in the DCU, which he's going to be able to. So now I think we'll really get to see with the Brave and the Bold, we'll get to see really what he's capable of. So Flash just isn't going to be a fair enough gauge because of everything that was going on around it.
Yeah, it is a little tricky situation because, I think it really is cool though, because I was a little not worried, but annoyed that like the way Flash went, that was going to be our lead into James Gunn's DCU now, because we're going from the DCEU to where apparently Gunn said that Blue Beetle is the first DCU film, even though it was made.
Well, DCU character,
right? Character. But I mean,
that's what I'm saying. It's very convoluted.
Yeah, but it's like weird because he also said that Flash was gonna reset things going forward for the DCU, and we all know how that went.
I stand by it. I've been saying this. I really think that we are not going to really get any kind of clarity.
Superman.
And no, until after Aquaman drops. Once Aquaman is cleared off the board, I think they're going to take a lot of these things that right now are kind of convoluted and weird. I think that they'll start really saying, okay, here, and painting a clearer picture of where this is going.
I stand corrected. I was going to say this is the last film going into the DCU.
Aquaman's coming out. Aquaman.
That movie's going to bomb so hard.
Yeah, that's why it's the first DCU character and not movie.
Test screenings have been horrible. And then we all know that
they're saying they're doing reshoots.
But we all know how the baggage from Ezra affected the Flash. The baggage from what's her name? Johnny Depp's ex.
And don't ask me to remember names. Amber Heard.
Amber Heard. We all know that's gonna bring a lot of baggage too, and people are not gonna see it in the theater because of her. So it's not gonna be good.
Again, I don't like zeroing it down to like these one single factor things, because Ezra Miller played a huge role, but it wasn't the only one. And again, the evidence of that is The Flash wasn't the only movie where you were seeing these kind of box office.
But it's really
misses.
It's really weird though, because then you have Barbie like at $1.3 million, $1 billion, like worldwide.
Yep.
You got freaking Mario Brothers over $1 billion. You got Beyond the Spider-Verse at like around $700 million. You have a lot of.
Where did that land in the end? Do you know?
Beyond the Spider, I thought it's roughly around 700 million worldwide, but you could check to get the specifics.
You can continue with your thought. I'll look it up.
So you have a lot of movies, even Mission Impossible, the new one. It wasn't as successful as they wanted, but it still made, I believe, close to 600,000, around the 550,000 range, I believe, last I looked at least. So point is, you got people going to the theaters if they like the stories.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, is it the superhero fatigue or the people don't want to spend the inflated ticket prices at the theaters? Sure, probably a little bit of it, but they also proved that if the story is good, we will spend the money to go to the theaters and all that stuff.
Yeah, but there's definitely a shift going on because there were movies like Mission Impossible that
it didn't do as good as it was supposed to, but it still did pretty good.
In fact, but they're struggling. They're hoping that this thing can become profitable. Mission Impossible. So
did you see what Beyond the
Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse rather did 686.
Okay, so I was
686
right.
million
Around
worldwide,
700 million,
just under 700 million. So it definitely performed well. The thing that's difficult is you've got movies now that are making $400 or $500 million at the box office, and they're still talking about breaking even because of how much these movies are costing, what goes into the marketing, how much the splits are, how much less they make internationally, and on and on and on you go. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got movies that you look at the box office, you're like, oh, this made a ton of money. And these guys are still saying they're underwater.
Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 did 524 million worldwide.
But the movie cost over $300 million to make it. It's not including the marketing budget.
I'm sure they wanted this movie to be at least a $700 to $800 million movie.
What I read was that this movie needed to break 700 million for it to move into profitability. And
they shot part 2 at the same time, didn't they?
Don't know that they shot them back to back.
Okay.
I'm not sure about that.
I mean, it's something to be said though, when a movie makes $500 million and like, not profitable. It's like, it's a
without
you
question.
Could buy a damn country. Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean?
Well, maybe an island.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you could buy you could change the world with $500 million.
You could do some damage, yeah.
Easily.
You could definitely make an impact.
The amount of people you could feed and things you could move.
Without question.
And these studios are like, not enough.
Honestly, it's one of the reasons why I think the studios are salivating at the idea of AI and being able to use AI for a myriad of things, including the visual effects.
This makes me laugh at like the Disney and Warner Brothers and all these big, because like, oh no, our movies are doing not as well and people aren't signing up to Disney Plus and 10 million people left Max and it's like, yeah, maybe make things a little cheaper so where, I don't know, 90% of the world can afford it.
Yo, I don't even want to go off on the whole streaming thing because I just had a whole rant with you the other day about how streaming, like they told us to get rid of cable. We don't need cable anymore because we've got streaming now. And then the streaming services went about the business of destroying many of the television networks so that everything started going to streaming. Now there's 750 streaming services and you can't get anything on one thing. So you've got to get a whole bunch of them. And then they cost the amount once you get them all together. If you're paying for them yourself and not sharing, which they're cracking down on now, you end up paying the same amount that you were paying for cable. And that's if you don't still freaking have cable.
Speaking of, if you didn't know, because I didn't know until a week ago, and I actually told you didn't know. So I'm going to put this out in the world for anyone listening and or watching so you're aware. Disney Plus announced that they will also be cracking down on the password sharing, just like Netflix, by the end of 2023.
Yep.
So come 2024.
And they're raising their prices.
So come 2024, it'll be very similar to Netflix, where like they'll be doing the whole stupid IP address tracking thing, so they know only people in your house and devices in your house are watching Disney Plus, which is really annoying because they also allow you to make up to like what 7-8 accounts on Disney Plus.
Something to that.
So
effect,
it's just like,
well, that was one of the big things. That was one of their big selling points.
Netflix
sharing.
Did you see the tweet from years ago where Netflix's official Twitter account said, like, encouraged password sharing?
No.
And someone reposted it, obviously, because it's the internet. You can't delete things from the internet. Freaking screenshotted it and posted it and added Netflix. I'm like, that is so good.
Oh, how things change.
That is so, like, talk about insult to injury.
Yeah.
Like, that is the most, like, wow. Like, 180 that, like, a company has ever done. But
yeah,
and it's a mixture of, I don't know, make and tell better stories, and also maybe stop charging, like, $30 for everything.
Yeah, well, and that's why I say it's not one thing.
I love how I just randomly chose $30. Like for whatever, $30 is the number. It's like, Arris, it's 8. It's like, no, it's 30.
Yeah, but coming back full circle, that's why I say it's not just one factor. There's a lot of changes happening. Even the way the consumer is going about things, what the consumer, how we're taking in entertainment, how we're choosing to spend our dollars, all of that is shifting. We're in the middle of a very disruptive time. And so there's a lot of factors going into why these movies are performing or not performing. And I think the cost of going to the theater is playing a big role as to why there's these scattered hits versus misses. Because some of these misses, like for instance, the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
It was a good movie.
Right? We just got done talking about that last week, about how it's a good movie. It's a fun version of these characters. It's a fresh take on it too.
It's a brand new, they changed a lot, origin and stuff like that. But again, it's clearly for children. Like this is not.
It's a kids. Yeah, it's for kids.
But you know how like
all of them kind of are.
Yeah. But like, yeah, I guess it's just I was a kid when the other ones came out.
Yeah.
Whatever. They're just rebooting it but they changed a lot of core things, even Splinter and stuff like that, and how the Turtles became Turtles. But it was still fun, and my kids loved it. And you know, I know us legacy people who want the characters to stay the same. It's like, yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but at the same time, it's like my kids are joining, and then this will be the next generation stuff. So it's this weird balance, especially because I'm such a big nerd, where it's like I say it all the time. We were talking about it earlier. I don't want them to change things, but I also kind of have to realize this, like, I have that. This is for the next generation, and that's going to change for the next generation.
Yes.
Because we were talking about the theater yesterday. What's weird is as far as like nerd things go, we're the first generation. So this is the only real time that things have been getting rebooted in the sense of like the Turtles and Batman. It's like, because we just started getting those movies in like the 70s, 80s, like Superman, Batman and stuff. And now the superhero movie boom. But that's like what, 30, 40 years ago?
Right.
So now it's time for the next generation. So they're rebooting it. So we're the first generations that's dealing with it. But now when my kids are like in their 20s or 30s and they reboot like Spider-Man, Turtles again, they're gonna be like, well, my Turtles was different. Like my Turtles were Mutant Mayhem.
The unique,
you know what I mean?
The unique aspect of that though is that we're the first generations that have ever dealt with this.
Well,
this is what I was telling to you yesterday.
Well, that's what I was saying.
It's like before that, like I didn't get a bunch of reboots of my parents' entertainment. Like I didn't get a bunch of reboots of their Hanna-Barbera and Howdy Doody Time and all this kind of a thing. We got our own stuff in each generation.
Looney Tunes a little bit.
Yeah, Looney Tunes. We talked about that yesterday too. Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry. There's like Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo a lot.
Scooby-Oo. There's a couple of them that you could point to. But they weren't, we got a ton of our own things. We
got some work to do now.
That's good.
That's all I got.
That's good.
Remember Scrappy Doo?
That was an example.
Remember Scrappy Doo?
But this is the first time where you are seeing like new generations are getting almost predominantly new takes on their parents' entertainment.
It's all the time.
Right? It's like Star Wars and Transformers and all these different things, right? Even now G.I. Joe.
Oh my God, that's right. Transformers is getting a soft
Ninja
boot.
Turtles, all the different comic book characters, Spider-Man, X-Men.
The Transformer movie is getting a reboot. It's just weird to think how long, because I remember still living in Florida, not married yet, still a teenager when the first Michael Bay Transformer movie came out. So to think like that now we're already with Rise of the Beasts and
within like a transition period.
We're in a transition period with the soft reboot as of Bumblebee,
right?
And now the Rise of the Beasts and introducing the Joes. It's like wow, because they also did the Joes, but that failed. So now they're like, we're going to integrate them into the Transformers now.
I think though an important aspect of that whole concept of us being like the kind of the first generations where you're seeing kids are inheriting their parents' entertainment. One of the factors of that I think is also, and I've said this before on the show, our generation, like what are the Gen X? I would say Gen X on. We are the most nostalgic generation, specifically in American history for sure. Like our parents didn't hold on to their stuff.
Yeah, I think technology
from their childhood
has done that a lot. Like the YouTube and just the social
TV
media
evolved
platforms.
in a different way. And just, the way that we consumed entertainment was very different from our parents. Our parents were outside.
Well, we're in the digital age, so for sure. And we just want to relive everything from our childhood. Yeah. So That's why you're getting, they're re-releasing.
We were a little bit more spoiled also. Our generations were far more spoiled than our parents' generations were.
They're re-releasing Batman, Mask of the Phantasm on 4K?
No.
They're doing, they already released it on 4K, but they're doing like some kind of platinum edition or whatever. I forget, but I'm like, oh, wow. Because they just did this a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
But now, I guess like another few years has passed, and now it's getting like the super ultra edition or whatever. And I'm like, guess I gotta get that.
Any way to make money.
Because they know people like me will buy it.
Yeah. But to work our way back to how we originally got on
Blue Beetle.
So the Blue Beetle movie being the first DCU character, not necessarily the first movie, because Aquaman will be the last DCEU film. When that bombs, which is the likelihood. I don't know. Maybe they surprised us like Blue Beetle, but
I will say, as far as Blue Beetle, this was crazy. So Flash opened up preview night Thursday at 9.7 mil. Blue Beetle opened up at 3.3 mil on preview night.
Ooh.
So yeah, I just saw this before we started recording. So go see this movie because it's a good movie.
Yeah,
go
see it.
Like we said it in the spoiler-free review. The only way to tell them that we want more of this is by showing them with money.
Yes.
Because if that's what matters. If it's successful, it'll get a sequel, it'll continue. So go.
Yeah. Because one of the big things that this
don't wait for streaming. Don't wait for streaming.
No, go see it at the theater.
It's actually better to see it on the big screen. This is a good movie to see on the big screen.
This is a great movie to see in with a bunch of other people, like you said last
Friends,
time.
Yeah.
In community, that communal experience in a theater. Especially, if you find a packed house, ours was not. It was like half full.
It was like half, yeah.
But I really do hope that this finds its groove. It finds a lane and it picks up steam. And people, we can't encourage you enough. Go see it because this is how we tell them the type of content that we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
As audiences, we tell them with our dollar. If we don't do that, well, then we can't complain. When we continue to get stuff that does make money, which as of right now is still stuff that we're not really thrilled about. Yeah. Unfortunately, because people we're living off of previous, popularity still to some degree, even though it's going down. Like I'm talking about Marvel films and things like that.
Well, I will say, because I know a lot of people, whether you want to call it superhero fatigue or just the fact that DC hasn't really been hitting lately,
or ever.
Put that all aside, or ever. Put that all aside. Blue Beetle is a solid film. Is it the best superhero film ever made? No, but it is really fun, well done, and I think a nice, fresh take for DC.
Yeah.
So I would say I want to see it again, but it may very well be my favorite DCEU film, which says a lot because I love Wonder Woman.
That was actually going to be my big closeout question, was where do you place this amongst DC films?
It's probably, I don't want to say definitively because I don't want to you said, but after I do a second viewing and sit on it a little longer.
Well, I will say as of right now.
As of right now.
With a tentative asterisk next to it.
It probably is the best. Because I'm thinking, oh man, Wonder Woman was so good too. It had a really good message and everything too. Man, that's tough. Because I really like Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's one of my favorite superhero films in general. I don't know. I can't give an answer right now. They're tied. They're tied right now. They're both That's
fair, because I would put it in my top 3.
It's easily in my top
3.
It's one or two, maybe one.
I would put it in my top 3. Again, I want to see it again as well.
What I'll say, like what we did for the spoiler-free one, I will give it a number out of 1 through 10. I'll do it that way. I would say it's an 8.5 to 9 out of 10 for me, because I don't remember the last time I had that much fun watching, I would say even a movie. That's the first time I had that much fun in recent memory in a while.
Yeah.
So I got to give it a very high
fun.
score.
That was, I would say, as far as a superhero film, that was the most fun I've had watching a superhero film since No Way Home.
No Way Home?
Yeah. Because No Way Home, it was a packed house.
It was.
It was a lot of fun. It was very reminiscent of some of the older.
And that says a lot, because that was the end of that trilogy. It was all built up. It was nostalgia-centric with Garfield and Maguire and stuff like that. And this, nothing. We didn't know anything about the character. It was brand new. So the fact that it hit when it wasn't even a beloved character, in the sense we weren't attached to him yet, speaks a lot.
I think that's one of the big things it has going for it.
It does.
It's fresh.
It does.
And even as a character from comics, it's not a character that everyone is super familiar with. So it will feel fresh to a lot of people. That's what I'm saying. Go see this movie.
Yeah.
It is different. It's outside the lanes of all of the other DCEU stuff that we've gotten that everybody's kind of just worn down on.
Mm-hmm.
This feels very different. It feels very separated, and it feels like something fresh and fun. So go see it and support it. If you know, I don't know, maybe you won't like it. Maybe you'll feel differently, and if you do, that's fine.
It's got a 95 audience score.
Yeah, as it should. I don't really pay much attention to the critics because so many of them, their sensibilities are, only Oscar contenders. They're looking for like technically sophisticated storytelling, and that that stuff has its lane. But this stuff has its own place as well, and they kind of look down their nose. A lot of the critics look down their nose at this type of content.
Yeah, it's got a 76 critic score on Rotten Tomato.
Which I still think is a high.
93 audience. It went down a little bit. 93 audience at the time of shooting this.
But even amongst critics, I still think that's a high score for this type of a movie amongst critics.
Yeah.
Because again, a lot of them tend to look down their nose.
Did you think this was better than Thor: Love and Thunder?
You're messing with me.
Did you like this more than She-Hulk?
Did you like it more? That's so hard to say.
Did you like it more than Secret Invasion?
Honestly. Wow, you're really getting.
Did you like it more than Fury of the Gods?
Wow. When you build up this kind of a
were you more excited for this or the Marvels?
The Marvels.
Are you more excited for this or Aquaman 2?
Dude. Why do we got to bring it down? Why do we got to end it on a sour positive?
Like you said, and I believe I said earlier because it is true. One of the things that this movie has going for it is that it's fresh, it's new, it has no baggage attached to it, and that's a big reason why I think it works so well. But it's just crazy to me at the same time, because characters like Tom Holland, Spider-Man, it's so beloved, right? Because we all love, or majority of us love Tom Holland, Spider-Man. So even though that is one of the things going for it, that Blue Beetle is fresh, it's still crazy to think a brand new character already is almost instantly, I'm not going to say instantly as beloved as Thomas, but works just as well.
That's the way to say it,
because Blue Beetle is basically DC Spider-Man. That's the other thing I want to say. This movie,
tonally, yes, for sure.
It's basically their version of a young kid becoming a superhero and all that good stuff. So it's it just works. It would never happen, but I would love to see Tom Holland Spider-Man crossover with this Blue Beetle. Yeah. But they just work
lots of
similarities, and really, really cool. Although Blue Beetle would take Spider-Man, he would take him for a walk. I said it.
It's not a fair. That's not a fair.
He's got freaking this crazy alien power.
Tech,
but he's got Stark tech.
Which when Rudy, George Lopez's character, she says, "Oh, it's alien tech," and he goes, "I don't really like the use of that word." He goes, "But you can use it. You can use it."
Anyway, the consensus is we both really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a blast of a film.
We highly recommend you see it, especially if you want to see more good DC movies, because the only way for them to make more is for this movie to make money at the box office. So I do not want it to fail. I do not need if this movie does worse than The Flash.
Oh man.
I've lost hope in all humanity.
It's clear that this movie is not out of the gate going to perform well. People are sitting back,
hopefully.
Big time. Yes. I'm hoping that word of mouth takes off on this and people are like, hey, you got to go see this. This is a really fun movie.
See the movie!
And over the next couple of weeks, it picks up steam and it finds itself a lane.
When's the last time I've said that? I don't think I've said that in a very long time, being this aggressive about it.
I certainly am not, because I'm way more critical than you.
I'm the guy who's I see every superhero movie in theater, but I'm but I'll wait for streaming. Remember, I've said that on a podcast too ago. Sure. Especially with the way things have changed. But this, see it in the theater.
Yeah.
There we go.
Agreed.
Right. So with that said, guys, we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.